today I want to talk about something a lot of people have been asking me about. So, now that everyone's got some time, here's some learning. So today I'm standing behind my Canon 80D, and today I wanted to go over some basics of photography to get perfect exposure. We're going to cover shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. It's these three things that create the exposure triangle: shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Using all three of these camera features, you'll be able to manually get perfect exposure in all of your photos. So let's dive in. Shutter speed is the speed at which the camera shutter moves, leaving the sensor exposed. Most digital cameras have a shutter wheel that you can use to adjust the time increments for the shutter, which can be read as fractions of a second or in seconds. The longer the shutter is open, the more light the sensor receives. But the shutter doesn't affect only light. A slower shutter lets in more light and captures more movement, creating blurs. A faster shutter lets in less light and captures movement much quicker. If you're shooting handheld, it's best to use a high shutter speed to reduce blurring from camera shake. Aperture is the hole in which the lens lets light pass through. Aperture is measured in f-stops, which is usually a number followed by a decimal and another number. This number correlates to the position of the blades inside the lens. The higher the number, the closer the blades will be to the center, letting in less light. The lower the number, the furthest the blades are from the center, letting in more light. This is similar to how the pupil of an eye works. When it's dark, the pupil opens wide, and when it's bright, the pupil closes down. A low aperture number is characterized by a shallow depth of field, and a high aperture number is characterized by deep depth of field. ISO adjusts how sensitive your camera's sensor is to light. This means the lower the ISO, the less sensitive it is to light. The higher the ISO, the more sensitive it is to light. The main downfall of having a high ISO is that you introduce digital noise in your image. It's best to use shutter speed and aperture before raising ISO too high. So now that we know these three things, it's important to remember that your camera has an exposure meter in it that'll help you when you're exposing your photos. Typically, it's just a guide for when you're taking your pictures, but it usually gets you in a pretty good ballpark of perfect exposure. The more practice you get with using these three things, the more you'll be able to branch out and use them to take different types of photos. Now, I want you guys to take this knowledge and start using it in your photos. Take your camera off of auto mode, switch it to manual, try taking some pictures adjusting ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. Send them to me on my Instagram or leave a comment in this video. I'd love to see the pictures you guys are taking. And if you like this video, leave a thumbs up and hit subscribe. And don't forget to keep making stuff.